Okay, finally. Oh my goodness.
Hello there. Hey.
Oh my goodness.
Whoops. What just happened now? Let's see. Okay, there we go. Okay, so now we know we've got it working. So should we stop the recording and just start over as if we're doing the interview now?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, sounds good.
Oh, so you want me to start or are you gonna?
Okay, I was just watching for that. So it goes green and then red again.
Yeah, yeah, go ahead.
Okay, one more time. Turn it off and then turn it back on again.
Uh,
Hello, everybody. Good evening, and welcome to this version of Just Another Magic Monday. And I am so excited because tonight we have a special guest. Her name is Alexi Bracey, and she is a beautiful, amazing woman. I met her at a JV collaboration event last week, and I was really impressed with what she does. She works with people with dementia, and she educates people on brain health and the signs of early onset of dementia and what can be done about that. And so I just am going to go ahead and I'm going to tell you two things first. I'm going to tell you two things that I know about Alexi, and then I'm going to turn the time over to her and let her introduce herself and tell you what she does. But when I met her, I was very impressed with her. And there's one thing I know, that she cares very deeply about people. Otherwise, she wouldn't be doing the work that she does with working with dementia patients. But she also helps educate people so that their lives can be a little more smooth as they go through this disease that affects so many people, that can be so hard to deal with. But so I know that she has a great compassion and love, and she really cares. The other thing that I learned about her is that she has quite a sense of humor, and she is so adorable. And when we were in our breakout sessions, when I met her, she told a few jokes and she got us all going and cheered us up. So that's another thing that I know about her. She likes to use her humor to help cheer people up. And so welcome again, Alexi. I'm going to go ahead and turn the time over to you.
well, thank you so much for such a warm welcome. I really appreciate it. Thank you.
You're
So,
welcome.
my journey started more than 20 years ago when I was given a diagnosis of cancer, which totally caught me off guard, like me cancer. But I knew when the pathologist called me to give me my diagnosis that I was going to conquer it. I didn't know how. I knew nothing about health or healing or things that were important for health, but without any medical intervention, drugs, or surgery, I was cancer free. And it was all based on the research that I had done at libraries and bookstores, because more than 20 years ago, the availability of the internet isn't what it was then. And I basically changed my lifestyle habits. And so
Wow.
then that started me on my journey, on learning all I could about health and healing from a holistic standpoint. So I've helped many people with cancer to detoxify. And then as I was myself approaching my wisdom years, I was becoming more interested in dementia prevention, because it seems to be paramount in the news and magazine articles just all over. And I freelance as a chef periodically. And this particular day, I was working at a seniors residence. It was lunchtime, and in the one dining room, you could hear the residents were all animated, having a lively conversation. And just a short walk down the hallway was another dining room where I was stationed. There were about 20 women seated at tables of four. We had to visually show them on two plates what their lunch entrees were. Some of them had to have their food cut up. Some had to be fed. Some were feeding themselves like a 4-year-old. And all you could hear in the room were the knives and forks on the plates. There was no social interaction, no eye contact, no conversation. And some of these women were only in their 50s, and it just broke my
Wow.
heart. I had never experienced anything like this. And I thought, the world really has to know, because you don't want to put your loved ones in a nursing home, because that is They're basically there waiting to die. That's the bottom
Right.
line. But what most people don't know is dementia is not inevitable as you get older. It is totally preventable. But
Wow. And so many don't know that. They have no idea.
absolutely no idea. And then until you maybe have a loved one, like a parent or a spouse, a grandmother who has dementia, and end up putting her in a nursing home, you have no idea how horrific it is. It's not just for the person that has lost their memory, but for the family members as well, because you no longer can communicate, you know?
Right. So there's two things I want to ask you. So what are some of the ways that we can prevent it so that we can educate people so that they know that this can be stopped and prevented? And then second of all, you just touched upon how hard it is for the families to deal with when they watch their loved ones go through it and they just watch them slip away. And I've watched loved ones go through some of that, and I've watched others who have talked to me about their loved ones going through this and how difficult it is. So let's talk about ways that we can help them through this as well. So first of all, let's address what are some ways that we can help prevent this?
Well, in terms of dementia or any kind of illness, it's only linked genetically by maybe 4%, and the rest is environment. So your environment can be the food you eat, the water you drink, your living environment, how much sleep you get, the community you belong to, all these external factors. Well, the blue zones, which are 5 communities on the planet that boast the healthiest, longest living well into the 90s and 100s. And so let's emulate what they do. Very big on social interaction, like belonging to a community, belonging to a bridge club, belonging to a hiking club, doing volunteer work, like really feeling like you have a reason to get up in the morning and you have a purpose. Whereas you hear so many people retire. And so what are you going to do now? Oh, I don't know. I'm just going to do nothing. Well, like we're so gifted with so many talents, and to share what we know to inspire a younger person, a grandchild, a niece or whatever. So these blue zones all are part of community. And what has been really hard during COVID is these people that are in nursing homes don't understand why they can no longer eat communally in the dining room and why their loved ones can't come and see them. It's like social isolation, which is really, it's detrimental not to people and seniors, but for people in the real world, so to speak. So social community is really important. Diet, of course, is paramount. We live in an environment, in a society where we're into fast food, everything quick and easy. And we don't realize that a lot of our foods have been sprayed with chemicals, which really affect our health, not just dementia, but just our overall health. So one of the key ones is glyphosates. And glyphosates is the active ingredient found in Monsanto's Roundup. And it's sprayed on crops to kill the bugs for a better and faster yield. And so all grains, beans, legumes, flax seeds, sunflower seeds are all sprayed with glyphosates. So it's really paramount to start reading your labels, and as much as possible, eat organic. Some people can't afford to eat organic exclusively, but they did studies that if you ate organic versus conventionally grown, it would cost you $550 more a year, period. That's it. And so, in the States, you have to pay for your medical care. So when you start getting sick, your medical care expenses would certainly be more than $550 a year. So like you really have to pay attention to what you eat. Grow your own gardens. People are, they're happening everywhere. Communal gardens. You can grow, fresh herbs or greens or tomatoes or whatever on your balcony if you don't live in a home. So really pay attention to what you eat. Genetically modified foods, especially the oils, the corn, canola, cottonseed, soy, they're very heavily sprayed with genetically modified foods. So again, it's really important to start reading your labels.
Yeah,
and,
very good point there. I think a lot of people are starting to wake up to the fact that, oh, wow, there's a lot of chemicals in our food, and maybe we should be more careful at what we're putting into our bodies. But sometimes people just don't know. They don't realize, and they're not aware. And so that awareness, that education of what is really in our food is vital. And like you say, what's $500 compared to thousands of dollars down the line if you aren't taking care of yourself? Your medical bills are going to be much higher than your grocery cost.
That's right.
So it is definitely worth it to spend $500 more a year on groceries, on good food
Yeah,
that's going to feed
you
your
know,
body.
and if you start making your own food at home rather than eating out, you're going to save a lot of money
Right,
right there. And then you
right.
know
That's
exactly what
true.
you're eating, you know.
True.
There's some things in our environment today that are very hard to avoid, but at least we can minimize them. And Wi-Fi is being one of them. Ideally, if you can, hardwire your computer, your electronics at home. It's not available, not feasible for everybody, but at least when you sleep, don't have any electronics in your bedroom because you need real sound sleep in complete darkness. So that means you don't go to bed with your iPad watching Netflix. You don't have your cell phone beside you. You don't need a clock radio beside you because it's all electronics. Get the old-fashioned wind-up clock. And then people say, well, what if there's an emergency and what if I get a phone call in the middle of the night? Well, I mean, how many times does that happen? Like probably next to zilcho. If you're going to have your cell phone on, well, then put it in the other room or at least as far away from your head as possible.
Right.
And your room
Or
should
I've
be,
also been told to you can put it on airplane mode,
well,
and
that's
that would
it.
be good.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. And then, your room has to be in complete darkness, like no night light down the hallway. Make sure you
Yeah.
got good curtain coverings over your windows because you really need that sound sleep because your brain detoxifies while you are sleeping. And if you're not getting good sound sleep, your brain's not going to detoxify, and that's where all the toxins accumulate.
That's very good to know. And it's interesting because for years I had a hard time sleeping. And then somebody told me if there's any lights on in your room at all, it shuts down your pineal gland and then you can't
Right,
sleep.
right.
So I got rid of my alarm clock. I covered the fire alarms, how they have the green lights on them.
Oh yeah, for sure.
I cover them with tape or with a little hoodie or something so that I don't see that green light peering at me all night long. And I really do feel like it makes a difference. But those are important things for people to know because we're bombarded with lights.
Exactly.
Yeah, so that's very good things. So thank you for sharing those things. There was something else that you touched upon last week in our breakout room where you talked about how there's even chemicals in the grass. So these elderly gentlemen who go out and play golf, they don't realize that they're exposing themselves to all those chemicals in the grass, and that can bring on early dementia.
Exactly, because the grass is sprayed with glyphosates to make it green. So any green grass anywhere in an urban environment. So it's golf courses, city parks, schoolyards, any grass areas when you're walking down the sidewalk in your city. Those are all sprayed with glyphosates to make it green. Some people still spray it on your lawns, and so that's really harmful. If you've got pets, they run around on your grass, and so they're going to have it on their paws, and then they're going to lick their paws. When young children play in your backyard on the swings, they're going to be romping on the grass. So again, the same thing. The leading cause of death in children under 16 now is brain cancer.
Oh, wow.
You
That
know,
is so sad.
you know.
And probably most parents have no idea of everything that you're talking about. This is so important for people to hear. And how sad that it can all be prevented if we had that education. So this is what we're doing. We're educating our friends and family and our community so that we can help prevent this. And then you also talked about, I had asked you last week if this could affect people with traumatic brain injuries, and you talked about athletes who have received traumatic brain injuries, how they can get it early on because of that. They're more susceptible to it.
Well, Dr. Amen, a well-respected doctor on brain trauma, he's got numerous clinics throughout the States, and he deals not exclusively, but primarily with athletes, either existing athletes or athletes that have retired, especially if they have been playing in contact sports, whereas like football or hockey, or you had a traumatic brain injury, like you got hit with a baseball bat, or you had a severe concussion, or you were in a car accident, or you fell down the stairs, because your brain is like butter, and it's butter in a thorny enclosure, and it just sort of gets rocked around. And he has shown repeatedly that trauma to the brain is very much responsible for neurological damage and leads to Alzheimer's and neurological disorders like that. So
Wow. So,
if you've been in an accident, make sure you get, you know, the MRIs and the specific scans on your brain, because it can be minimized, but you have to know and not live with it for 10 or 15 or 20 years when it gets worse, or, you know, you have constant migraines and you just, well, you just put up with it. Well, you don't have to put up with it.
oh, that's so good to know. This is such great information for people to know. I'm just curious. I watched a documentary a few years ago because you were talking about the people in the rest home, where some of them were, you know, communicating and talking and interacting, and others were, you just heard the knives on their plates and they weren't interacting at all. I watched a documentary called Alive Again,
Oh,
and it
I'm
was, yeah,
amazing,
oh,
amazing.
have you watched that? I cried
Yeah,
through the whole thing. It
I
was
know.
so touching. But it's about, he was a doctor, right?
Hmm.
A
Hmm.
doctor, and he decided he was curious to see what music would do for dementia patients. And so he took a team and he went into the rest homes, and he started, there were people who were in vegetative states or
Hmm.
non-responsive and who would just sit there with their heads down. And he would put microphones on and start playing music, and they started to come alive again. And that's why this documentary is called Alive Again. It was so beautiful to see. They
Hmm.
started remembering the music. They could remember the words and the songs, and they started singing to them. And
Yeah.
it was so amazing to watch that and to see that. And oh, it did my heart. It was just like, oh my goodness, because I am a musician and I know
Hmm.
how healing music is for the soul. But to see that, it was like, wow, there's really so much more to this. And I don't know if you want to touch upon that even a little bit more.
Yeah, well, the part of the brain that remembers music is not affected by Alzheimer's.
Okay.
So they would document the era that that person, or collect music from the era that that person grew up in. So, you know, whether it was Frank Sinatra, or whether it's the Beach Boys or the Beatles or whatever. And when they played music from that era, their faces just lit up, just like you said, and they became alive again. I mean, it didn't cure their dementia, but it made such a significant difference, because otherwise people just sit there on their wheelchair and like there's nothing stimulating or nothing for them to look forward to. And so this doctor wants to put an iPod in every nursing home all across the states. It costs like $79. Every family could afford that, and play the music from the era that your loved ones grew up in, because it makes such a big difference. At the same residence where the doctor was, he said, I can prescribe $1,000 worth of pharmaceuticals to these uh, Alzheimer's patients in the nursing home, and it does nothing for them, but you give them music and look at the change.
It's so beautiful.
I know, it was
Wow.
such a touching movie. I absolutely loved it. I
It
highly
really
recommend
was.
everybody watch it. It's free. You can download it. Alive
I do.
Inside.
Yes,
Yeah.
definitely.
Yeah.
Yes. Okay, let's just talk about one more thing. Um, so what are ways that we can help families who have a loved one who is experiencing dementia? What can we do for the families to help them as they go through this difficult transition, to help them cope?
Well, first thing is to really learn how to talk with your loved one, not at them, not down at them, because they may have a hard time, your family member, to communicate with you. So really pay attention and really listen to them. Make them feel important, make them feel special. Do things with them that you know they really enjoyed when they had their own, the proper faculties with them. Take them outside for fresh air, vitamin D, sunshine, surround them with loved ones, have family gatherings, like really make them part, like they're special, not to be excluded and sort of ignored, and you wouldn't understand anyway. Just make them really feel special, because they always treated you like that when you were growing up. And so we certainly owe it, at least, to treat our loved ones with respect and love. It's not their fault that they're in the state they're at, and it's really taxing on loved ones to look after them. But like really, connect with groups, with families that are looking for support, to communicate with one another. And, well, this worked for me, maybe you'd like to try it. And I read this really good book, or I saw this article, like just to share among communities that have loved ones in that situation, because you need that support just as much as the person with dementia needs support.
That is such beautiful advice. I love that. So basically, you treat them as if they're still the person that you knew and loved, because they really still are. They're still in there. Their souls are still there. Their spirits are still there, and they're going to feel that love. And if they're treated opposite, they're going to feel that. They're going to feel, the opposite of the positive. They're going to feel the negativity if you talk down to them, or you're demeaning, or you act like they're not there, or they're not anybody anymore because they're gone. They're still there, and they still feel. And so I think that's beautiful. And the dignity and the respect, as you said, they treated you with that their whole life, so they deserve that still. So that's beautiful advice. I really love that. Is there any last thing that you want to add to what we've
I really
discussed?
feel it's important just to be grateful. Just be grateful, everybody across the board, no matter what age. Just be grateful, not only for the bad things, the good things, but for the bad things. Like, say, for example, you have the loved one that has dementia. Well, be grateful that maybe you were in a position to help them. Or you're going to find the resources. Be grateful that they had a life, that they looked after you, or if it was a spouse, you were married to them. Be grateful for the memories you had, the children you maybe raised. There's always something to be grateful for, even in negativity. Like even to wake up in the morning, that you're grateful that you can see the sunrise, you can smell the fresh air, you've got food to eat and water and a bed to sleep in. There's always something to be grateful for in the midst of negativity.
Yes, definitely. Very true. And when we're grateful, I think that opens us up to being blessed more, because it raises our vibration. We're in a better mood. And yeah, it feels so much better to be grateful than to be down and depressed and always worry, why does this happen to me? Or, complain. Gratitude does wonders for everyone. So what beautiful advice and education you've shared with us tonight. I really appreciate it. And I didn't know that about yourself, how you were able to overcome your cancer that you had. I think that's amazing. You are an amazing, incredible woman. And I have learned so much from you just talking to you in this interview, and I'm so grateful. And thank you so much for doing this interview with me. And I know you mentioned you have an app. If people want to contact you and they need to know where to find you, you said you had an app. Why don't you tell us a little bit about that app?
Okay, well, the app is called the Whole Health app. So if you have an Android, you have to type in the word whole health, lowercase, one word. And if you have an iPhone, you type in the Whole Health app. I do have a free quiz on there. Are you at risk for dementia? So once you're at the app site, just go into topics, miscellaneous, and articles. And there's a quiz on there. Are you at risk for dementia? So it just may open your eyes to some things that you've overlooked, or that you never considered were, could be key factors in preventing you or a loved one from getting dementia.
Okay, awesome. Thank you so much for sharing that. And thank you for the work you do. You're amazing.
Oh, well, thank you. If I could just share one little boy who's grateful.
Sure.
And so he says, Dad, I know who I'm going to marry. And his father says, so who's the lucky girl? And he says, it's Grandma. She loves me. She's a great cook and she's an awesome storyteller. And the father thinks for a moment. And he says, well, there's a little bit of a problem, son. What's that, Dad? Well, you can't marry my mother. Well, why not? You married mine.
That's adorable. See, I told you she had some good jokes in there. Thank you for sharing that. I'm glad that was a great note to end on with that joke. Thank you so much, Alexi. It was beautiful to have you on. I'm so grateful that I got to meet you. Good luck in all your work and your endeavors in the future. And hopefully we will be able to connect again. And once again, if any of you want to reach out to Alexi, go to that app, take the quiz. And I know Alexi is also on Facebook, so I'm sure she'd love to be your friend if you reached out to her. Thank you so much.
Well, thank you so much, Jeannie.
You're welcome.
Okay.
We'll talk soon.
Okay.